Welcome to Archive West Texas. I'm your host, Gordon Wilkerson, joined today by our producer, Thomas Dye. We're pleased today to welcome James Odom as our guest. James is a native of Alvarado. He came to Texas Tech when he was just 16 years old on a football scholarship. After graduation, he was hired in 1955 at the age of 20 as an assistant football and head golf coach at Lubbock Monterey High School. In 1962, when he was 27, he left Lubbock to take his first head coaching job in Petersburg, Texas. Petersburg had last won a district championship in 1943. In only his second season with Petersburg, the Buffaloes won a 1A state football championship. In 1964, James returned to Lubbock as head coach at Monterey High School. He served as Monterey's head football coach for 22 years until he retired from coaching in 1985. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk about your childhood, growing up in Alvarado in the midst of the Great Depression. Tell us about your family and your upbringing.
Well, I actually grew up about 4 miles southeast of Fort Worth at a little town called Alvarado. It was a community that really most of the people that lived in there worked in Fort Worth. It was a very good school, very good opportunities for me to get educated.
What were some of your favorite classes, some of your best teachers you had?
Well, my favorite coach was Coach Head. Coach Head was a real nice guy, but he made you mind. He made you behave, and he was a good coach. And we were very successful under him at Alvarado.
Just a football coach?
Just football coach, and he was also principal.
What position did you play?
Played running back on a T formation, it kind of a wide open type offense, and did most of the running. That kind of offense, your tailback does most of the running. So I did that.
There you go. Tell us about your family.
I have 2 older sisters and an older brother that were a year apart. Mother and Dad skipped a year and had me. I was the baby. And I was not treated like a baby. I had to work just like the rest of them did. But we lived on a farm that another guy owned. Our house was 2 rooms, 1 room for the kids and 1 room for Mother and Daddy. And we had a lean-to on the back for kitchen. And we actually had to live there for until I was about 5 years old. We moved there to another school, but Daddy was making 75 cents a day if he worked. He was just a sharecropper, but Dad saw to it right close, because he didn't get to finish school, Mother didn't get to finish school. He saw that his 4 kids all got an education, and my one sister was a secretary in Dallas, and one sister was a beauty shop owner. So we had a nice family.
So tell us about how you made your way from Alvarado, Texas, out to Texas Tech.
Texas Tech had a basketball player named Paul Nolan who was 6'10". And Paul was a friend of my brother's. And when it rained, Paul couldn't get home because of the mud. And so he'd spend the night with us. Can you imagine me and my brother and Paul Nolan in the same bed when he's 6'10"? His feet are hanging out. But we had a good time. And but Paul came to Tech and was the leading scorer for years until the three-point play came in. And Paul was one of Coach Robinson's prime projects because he made him into a basketball player. And we had a player that got invited to come to Tech to try out right after I graduated, and he asked me to ride the bus out here with him. And I rode the bus out. We got off the bus and went to West Hall, and then we went on in, and he worked out. And Polk Robinson asked me to work out with him so they'd have enough to scrimmage. When it was over with, Coach Robinson told me, he said, "You're no basketball player, but are you a football player?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I don't have any place to go, but I'd like to go." And he said, "Would you like to come out here?" And I said, "I'd love to." He said, "You'll be at the office in the morning at 10 o'clock, and we'll give you a tryout." And so I went at 10 o'clock, and he had 3 or 4 scholarship players there. And we ran races and did some drills and whatnot. And I outran all of his recruits that he had recruited in the 40-yard dash. And so he gave me a scholarship if I would wash dishes. And so for 2 weeks, I washed dishes in the chow hall. And it started my career as a dishwasher. But it didn't last but long. I had to wash dishes about 2 weeks. He said I could play, and he made me stop washing dishes, thank good. But it had one good effect. Ruby, our cook, I washed dishes for her and made friends with her. And she would save me food and hand it to me out the back door. That's kind of how I got to Lubbock.
What did you study at Tech?
I studied engineering for 1 semester, and I decided I wasn't going to be no engineer. So I went back to PE and became a coach.
Now, you were only 16 when you came out to play football at Tech?
Yep. Turned 17 in October.
How did you skip two years of school?
I started a year early because we had a little country school and we had 2 teachers, and we only had enough students for 1 if I didn't start. So they let me start about 2 months early. And the second year that I was there, I skipped the 2nd grade because they added the 12th. We were only 11 years before I started the school. And my freshman year was because I had skipped a grade.
Now, was Tech in the border conference then?
We were in the border conference.
Any favorite professors or coaches while you were at Tech?
Well, Coach Mitchell was my coach, and he cussed me because I was left-handed. He wasn't used to coaching the left hand. He said, everything I tell you is backwards. And I said, Coach, don't worry about it. I can transfer that from right to left, from left to right. I've been doing it all my life. You couldn't even buy a left-handed baseball glove when I was a kid.
So what position did you play?
I went out there as a running back, but when I got hurt and didn't get to finish fall practice, I started I volunteered to run the scout team. They were going to redshirt me, and I volunteered to run the scout team. And when fall practice started, I guess I'd done enough good job that they put me at quarterback.
There you go.
And I was one of the 2 quarterbacks. We had a spring game at Midland, and then had one at Tech.
I think I remember seeing a photo of you out at the 50-yard line,
Yeah.
throwing that left-handed ball.
Yeah.
It's time for us to take a quick break. Coach, when we come back, we want to learn a bit more about your years over at Monterey. If you have a suggestion for a future guest on Archive West Texas, please email us at info@classical1057.org. We really appreciate you listening. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Archive West Texas. Today we're talking with Coach James Odom. In our last segment, we learned a little bit about how James made his way to Lubbock and Texas Tech, and how he ultimately became a high school football coach. Let's talk more now about your years at Monterey and Petersburg. So you were part of the opening team at Monterey High School.
Yes. I was a freshman coach my first and second year there. I was a backfield coach the next 5 years. And had some good athletes, but we never did win big.
So who was the head coach then?
Bill Dubose was the head coach. He came from the University of Texas. Eck Curtis was our athletic director, and Eck Curtis came from Texas too. So he brought Bill Dubose with him as a head coach at Monterey.
You somehow also wound up becoming the golf coach?
I drew the short straw, and we did actually draw straws. I had the short straw, and guess what? I got the short straw back.
So had you ever played golf?
No, I didn't even have a golf club. I had to go down, and I went to the Holt Sporting Goods, and I bought a driver, a 3-wood, a pitching wedge, 5-iron, and 3-iron.
There you go.
And that's what I played with.
That's a good story. So you leave Monterey after 5 years or so.
7 years.
7 years, and you head to Petersburg.
Right.
How'd you get recruited to be the head coach at Petersburg?
I applied for it.
You applied for it, okay.
Don Apple had some land over close to Petersburg, and he lived with Magel. Magel just moved in, and he told me about it. Said he thought they had some good kids, so I applied for it and got it.
So tell us about Petersburg and.
Petersburg was a typical small town. Everything's centered around the school and the church. And I think that Petersburg had more people that liked to bet on football than they did that went to church. They really liked their football, and they really wanted to see you win.
No pressure, Coach.
No pressure, no pressure. I had one tell me, I bet on you, and I bet you to win, and I didn't bet you to tie. We tied it. He said, I didn't bet for you to tie.
So you get there, and they hadn't had a whole lot of success since
No.
1943.
They had moderate success. They'd win 6 or 7 games, but
All right.
they never got the big one. Idley was dominant in that district.
And apparently there wasn't really a history of discipline and,
No.
and workouts, and so
Right.
so what did
It
you
was-
have to put together to get this team? How do you take this team from where it was to where you took them 2 years later?
Organize them, coach them. You got to organize your workouts. You got to organize your game plans. All that stuff wasn't being done. They just go out and scrimmage, and that's it. We didn't scrimmage much. I didn't want them to be beat up.
So the state championship run, what was that team like? What was the record, and who'd you play in the finals?
We were 13-1 in 0. We tied one game, 13-13 in a muddy field. Kicked a field goal with 7 seconds left to tie it. That was Crosbyton. And I hate to say this, but the water wasn't from rain on the field. That's a nice way to put it.
No, surely nobody would do something like that. in
Yes,
West
they
Texas.
would.
Okay. All right.
Oh, man.
So what was it about that team that made them?
They were disciplined. They wanted to win. They had a great desire to win. They'd been so close so many times that they had not won. Actually, there were some athletes that at Petersburg that year that could have played for me at Monterey. In fact, 3 of them played at Tech. So they were some talent there,
Yeah,
needless to say,
and some leadership.
and some leadership.
So you win the state championship at Petersburg, and then LISD comes calling again because the head position is open at Monterey,
Right.
and suddenly you're back there.
I'm back there and tickled to death.
Yep.
There's not many people that's coached that can say they only coached at 2 schools.
No, that's true. That's true. So you're at Monterey for 22 years. Tell us about some of the highlights, some of the players you most remember, some of the teams you most remember.
I remember my first district championship there. It was my second year. 6-4 my first year, and my second year we won the district championship against the 4 Amarillo schools and the 3 Lubbock schools were and I won the district and won by district against Wichita Falls Rider, and that kind of started a trend. And we had kids that really wanted to play and really wanted to win, and I tried to make it fun for them. We had a little joint session every day during practice. We'd stop about halfway through and get a water break, and somebody would tell a joke. You had to tell a clean joke. It couldn't be dirty,
Yeah.
but they all would stick their hand up when you say it's joke time. Who wants to give one? And they all had one. So it was a lot of fun.
That's good. 22 years. Why did you want to coach football, and what are you most proud of accomplishing as a coach?
I think the proudest thing I could say is that I'm proud of the kids. They made it all possible for me. They turned out to be good gentlemen, good citizens, and if you're not a good citizen, you're not going to be a good athlete, or you don't going to be a good player. And I thought they had great discipline, great integrity, and I was just so proud of them every year. Even though sometimes we didn't win big, we were able to accomplish a lot.
What's the funniest thing you've ever seen happen during a football game?
Me passing out on the sideline
Well,
twice.
twice.
Something about my head. I jump up real quick and my brain goes blank. And I was in the sideline and I jumped up, and first thing I knew, Arnie, my trainer, was new, and he was over there trying to help me, and I was trying to get up. Magel walked by, and old Magel, he's good about this. He said, "Arnie, let the old fart up. He can't. He does that all the time."
Not to worry. Who are some of the best athletes and best leaders that you've coached over the years?
I'd say Ron Reeves is number one. I had some other quarterbacks that I thought were good leaders. Randy Bolin, my first quarterback here, he was a good one. Tim Horn was a running back that went to Texas. He was a good leader. We had some Jack Buffington. Buffington was 6'6", played tackle. Played tight end for me. Went to Tech and played tackle. But Dan was the most laid back, just a guy that just didn't ever get excited about nothing. He had a good time.
All right, it's time for us to take another break. Coach, when we return, we're going to talk about your life outside of football. Want to remind our listeners that all archived West Texas episodes, including this show, are available on demand in our station app and also on our website at classical1057.org. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Coach James Odom. James, we're going to talk a little bit now about your life outside of football. Before we head that way, you reminded me of a story. A lot of our listeners will be familiar with Keith Bearden, who was the director of the Monterey Band before he was the director of the Texas Tech Band. You said he had a special request of you one time on the sidelines. Tell us that story.
It was getting close to the end of the first half, and we were about to score, and we were on about 10 or 15-yard line, and about a minute to play, and Keith Bearden came running down, grabbed me by the shoulder, and shook me and said, "Coach, don't score again. Don't score again. I can't make a 6." And I can't make a 6, well, whatever the score was. I can't make it with my group. So don't score.
The band was going to spell out the
Band
score
was
at
going to
halftime,
spell out
and
the score
if you
at
scored,
halftime.
he wasn't going to have enough people to make the
Yeah.
right numbers.
He didn't.
There you go. Well, and so
we didn't score.
well, good for you. You played take one for the team there.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about your life outside of football. How'd you meet your spouse, and what secrets can you share for being happily married for 66 years?
Well, I met her at a dance when I was a junior. She was a freshman. I went to the freshman dance and met her. I tried 2 weeks in a row to get a date with her the next week, and I couldn't get one because she was busy. And finally I kept up and I got one. And come to find out, she was dating this guy. I had been for 2 years. And he was in Tech also. But I finally got her to go on a date. Finally got her all changed over.
There you go.
He was shocked when he called her to talk to her, and she said she was going with me.
What does your family and your faith mean to you?
God directs everything. If you let him, he'll lead you. And I've been a Christian since I was big enough to know what a Christian was. I sat on the back seat with all the other boys in Sunday school and church, but I knew what was going on. And I accepted Christ as my Savior, and He's led me all the way. I know that growing up in a small town, everybody knows what you're doing. Everybody knows that if you went out on Saturday night and did something, they all knew it by Sunday morning. So I think that I'm just happy knowing that I was able to grow up and be a Christian and exhibit that. Our football team used to go to church every Sunday together. A lot of times we'd go to church, and that's the only time some of those kids went to church. That's when I took them.
Well, just another example of your strength as a leader and a mentor. So from an early age, I think also you've been a skilled woodworker.
Oh,
you
I
enjoyed
love
that,
woodwork.
and you helped your parents build a home in Alvarado, and
Yep.
maybe even worked with Coach Magel on building a cabin over in Ruidosa.
He and I built a cabin in Ruidosa together, and Bobby was the best go-getter you ever saw. He could go get anything you needed.
So I want to know, when James Odom and Bobby Magel are on a construction job, who's in charge?
I was.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was my house, and Bobby didn't know anything about building, but he learned, and he did a good job. He was a good gopher. He could get it before I could say scat.
So what do you like about working with your hands?
I love it. God gave them to me. I can't use them anymore. I can't hold anything still long enough to work with my hands now. I loved building things. She's got a piece of furniture that I built that I guarantee you can't find one like it in the store. Buffet table.
There you go. You also tinkered with building golf clubs once upon a time, didn't you?
Yeah, I built my own. I bought the pieces and put them together.
That's good.
Yeah.
So as a lifelong educator, what kind of advice would you offer to principals, teachers, parents, even students? I mean, education's still job one in this city, this state, this country.
My advice to teachers, new teachers, is that everything's not going to go smooth. It's not going to be in your favor all the time, but doing what you're doing as a teacher is worthwhile. It is something that is very vital, because you don't know what those kids are getting from you, not even what you teach them, but what they see from you. And I think that's a very important job for a teacher, is to be an example for their kids.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to the kids?
Kids, listen to your teachers and don't mouth off at them. You know, kids nowadays, they liable to just mouth off at you if they don't like what you told them. And I think that we're going back to partly to our parents not disciplining their kids like they should. I won't get many praises for that, but that's true.
Well, I think you've got a valuable perspective there. I do. So your Petersburg State Championship team hosted a little reunion not too long ago, or put together a 90th birthday party for you.
Yeah, right.
Tell us about that.
Oh, it was fun. I didn't know they were coming. I didn't even know they were there. I walked down into that lobby, and they all hollered at me, and I like to fainted. But there was, I think, 7 of the 9 that's still alive were there. We had a good time. It was wonderful.
Well, I'm glad y'all had that time together. That's special that they would come join you for your 90th.
Well, it's a blessing. Those kids, they don't come to Lubbock. They don't come see me. I don't know why, but we just grew close. We were pretty close to the same age. It was a family deal.
Sounds like it still is.
Still is.
Yeah. Coach, I think I speak for everybody who knows you when I say we appreciate the profound and positive influence you've had on the Lubbock community over the decades. What has Lubbock meant to you? And as we wrap this up, what words of wisdom would you have for our listeners?
Lubbock is home. You know, a lot of people go back to their home where they grew up. I just would not leave Lubbock. I had a couple of opportunities for good jobs if I'd have moved, but I didn't want to move. I wanted to stay in Monterey. I wanted to stay in Lubbock where my family was. I had a lot of good memories from Lubbock. That was my home, and I wanted to stay there.
So what's your best parting wisdom from a coaching perspective? Just pull yourself out of the football coach role. Assume you're a life coach for a moment. What's the best words of wisdom you can share with our audience?
Be honest with your players. Just make sure they know that you appreciate them, but let them know that you're with them all the way, but they need to do it in the right way.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your story and spending some time with us this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here.
Thank you for listening today. We're wrapping up this episode of Archive West Texas, but if you know someone whose story we should share, please email your suggestion to info@classical1057.org. I'm your host, Gordon Wilkerson. Please join us next time for another edition of Archive West Texas.